I believe.
Hello.
Yes, Ronnie. It looks like we lost the call there briefly.
Okay, we're back.
I don't know what, that's weird. That's never happened before. Well, never mind what I said about Skype. keep your digital hybrid. I've used the digital hybrid. I like this because I can boost your volume and get a really good mix. Plus, if you have Skype, we can go Skype to Skype sometime, which is really like an ISDN line. It puts you right in the studio.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there is no telephone sound. It just sounds like you're next to me with your own mic.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Sold Out Warning, obviously when you wrote that, that was really, to me, your kind of entry into this whole thing began with Sold Out Warning. I mean, that's when you started getting on the air. But what came first, the book, Sold Out Warning, or the show, or how did you get involved with, interest in UFO from, say, a spiritual standpoint?
Well, I started radio in 2004, and in fact, it was March of 2004, and by May, I met up with a man that I had dealt with from the late 90s, and he had worked with Billy Graham. And he wrote a book on the New World Order. So I thought, I've got this radio show. I think I'm going to go interview him. So I drove up to Oregon and had a live interview and spent the day with this man and again, worked with Billy Graham and knew Billy Graham was not who everybody sees Billy Graham as. He knew that he had a very dark side to him. And this man was one of the nicest men, one of the most spiritual men I'd ever. His name was Dwight Kinman. And to make a long and short of it, we did this great long interview, and he told me, when you talk about the New World Order and you talk about the shadow government, there's not too much of a problem. But once you cross paths with the alien agenda, be careful. And I said, alien agenda? I didn't hardly know anything about it. And then he began to say, do you know who Philip Schneider is? And I said, Philip's never heard of the man. He said, well, he was a government engineer, and he built underground bases, and one of the ones he worked on was Dulce, New Mexico. And so I knew nothing about this. I kind of blew it out one ear, and within 2 weeks, I found out another man that was talking about Phil Schneider. Well, this Dwight Kinman had known Philip and basically was with him the night that he was murdered. So it was very interesting it was kind of like God putting me into a realm of saying, this is stuff you need to know about. And in the late 90s, I was in a deliverance ministry, which, you're basically helping people get rid of their demonic influences. And that's a whole trip in itself. So when I started moving into the alien agenda, I found that the demonic realm in deliverance ministry was much like dealing with the ET presence. One more silent and quiet, the other more a frontal attack, taking you into another dimension. The two actually connected. And my training in deliverance really was a jump for me to get into the ET presence. And I believe that God wanted me to help abductees. And one of my theories was that if you had what I call the Christ force, not religion, but if you had the Christ force and the understanding of Jesus Christ and his blood and who he was, that you actually could combat the presence of the extraterrestrial and stop the abduction. And so this was my theory, and I started to work with some abductees, and this started to work. And the key is, it's a heart mode, but in fact, I just was dealing with a very good friend that has been taken since he was a young man. And I just got an email from him this last week, and he said, Ronnie, they came to take me, and he'd never done it before, but he blurted out, I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord. And he said, they backed off. And he says, and actually, they're very angry. So this really put power to two things. It put power to, number one, that Jesus Christ is real and it's not just some made-up name. Because if it was just a made-up name, these ET presence, graves, whatever, would never react. And it also put power to something else. It put the fact that if they are opposite of Jesus Christ, now we're talking a spiritual war, which said who they actually worked for, which said basically there is Lucifer, there is an adversary, there is Satan, this is a reality. This is, again, not another made-up plan. So it really put light to two different things. And it also said there was another dimension, and these ET presence has a opening to a dimension and actually is able to take the uncovered people, the people that don't have the Christ force, and draw them into another dimension and basically treat them as lab rats. So there was a lot of learning, and with this, now I fight and try to teach abductees how to fight and what to say, what to do, so that they can either stop or slow down their abductions. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's again, if a person is plagued with visitation in the night, let's say, of a demon, a demonic presence, or something that comes as an angel that wants to have sex, let's say. I mean, I'm getting right to the nitty gritty, that wants.
Jeff, dive in, buddy.
That wants. Okay, well, they want to have sex or something, and then it starts becoming like a seduction, and then the next thing you know, these are composite people I know, and then they say then it started turning into rape, and scratch marks, and violent things like that, and then believe it or not, some will say that they are also abductees who are experiencing these scratch marks and bite marks and violent sex, also having to do with abduction, also having to do with their own memories of being ritually abused or abused as children, having forgotten those, but then having this experience trigger those old memories of being traumatized by, say, friends and family who themselves were also traumatized, and it's a big, deep, dark secret. What are your thoughts on the connection between because you mentioned it, is there, I'll just say the connection between the abduction and the actual abuse or ritual abuse, and third, the, demonic visitation, sex, and so forth?
Well, I would say this. First of all, the reason these demonic forces want to have sex is very much going back to Genesis 6. Fallen ones come, they mate with the women of fair, and it's not just women anymore. The female species is also mating with the males, and obviously the seed. So what we have is that mating of the DNA, putting them together to create a species. And this is why and really, actually, I need to back up here. There's also these fallen ones, which we call ETs so easily. They are also have given the power to the shadow government, and the shadow government now has all of these technologies and really can simulate an abduction to where it's very hard to know if you're actually being abducted by a true ET or if you're being abducted by a military covert type operation. They're almost two in the same now. And this says that the shadow government is very involved in it. They have been involved since the 30s, maybe even earlier, but this has been going on a very long time. So we can see ships, we were talking earlier, in Edwards Air Force Base, there's a lot of ships that fly. A lot of teams go out there to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. The same thing in Colorado. You'll see San Luis in Colorado, that a lot of sightings there as well.
The San Luis Valley, yes. That's in southern Colorado.
Exactly.
Right. Just
and you
above
also have
Taos.
Rathdrum, Idaho, another huge place. And, of course, you have a huge, up there in the lakes, there's a lake that has no bottom. So what you have is there's a lot of ET presence around there, Spokane, Rathdrum, Idaho, in that top side of Idaho. And there's many other places. I'm just a few. If you go to Dulce, New Mexico, the Archuleta Mountains, you're going to see, again, another place for great watching, and you can almost guarantee you're going to see something. Pagosa Springs, there's another one. So we can go on and on with how many different places we can see ships.
Those are also those are so close to me. I mean, those are Pagosa, Dulce, Taos. Remember the Taos hum?
Yes.
And then
yes.
People are saying that there's...
And you're going to get the same thing just with Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's a lot of sightings in Albuquerque.
Right.
And this just goes on. Arizona, huge place. You have Travis Walton. A lot of abduction. In fact, his whole abduction, and when you get in the basis of that, is very interesting because black Travis and said, "Hey."
Okay, Ronnie, we have a snag on the line, and not sure
Are
what.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. We've had a snag on the line. This is really strange, but with this topic, again, I have not ever had that before.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've never had that before. In fact, it's totally bizarre and out of context with my experience with calling people and talking. Yeah. Okay, getting weird. Okay, perhaps we need a little sound effect. Let's see if I've got a sound effect. Yes, it's getting strange, folks, but it's all. We've got to get back to being serious. Okay, so here's the thing. You've got the military, the military involved, and then a lot of that can be involved in mind control, MK-Ultra, trauma-based abuse. A lot of the people I talk to have been victimized by being taken to underground military bases such as Area 51. Believe it or not, that's pretty well reported. People being taken, women in the Monarch program, Monarchs, being taken underground and having bizarre rituals, whereas children, they're having, sex with whatever, with entities, with humans, with, different scenarios. And one person said, well, it'd be like a different movie set. You'd be taken underground to a base, and it would be like, okay, this will be, say, back 1,000 years in the past kind of set. And then there'd be another setup where it would be in the future. Another setup would be like being on a UFO. And then others have reported being on the UFO and flying around to abduct more children, to have ritual sex with them, with the military involved in backing it all up. What's the point with sex with children? There's no way of having procreation with children. Why are they doing that?
How I've found in my studies, when they do sex with children, they traumatize the child. The child's not set up, especially at 5 years of age or 7 years of age, they're not set up to have sex. And more mentally even than physically. Physically, they're not really set up either, but it's probably more trauma when it comes to the mental side or the psyche than it is actually even in the physical. And when they traumatize the children, there's an element of control. And because it's almost like the child checks out. When the trauma is taking place, they actually sometimes will leave their body. And sometimes what I call the bad guys, the shadow government, they want to see who will split their body. And if they'll split their body, this is somebody they can put into training for remote viewing. And this goes into psych ops, and this is where MK-Ultra is used as well. And they can put false memories so that the child actually sometimes will not even remember the trauma that took place in a young age. Obviously, the bad guys have a sex problem, and this is also the second. So if they do not separate from the body, they just go ahead and traumatize them and rape them anyway. But if that person or if that child will separate and leave the body during the trauma, and really when the kid is going through the trauma, they just become very complacent. What they have is now they have somebody they can put into training for remote viewing, which usually leads into assassination or leads into, basically a mind copying system where they can go in and read documents and have a photographic memory. And there's many things because the psyche's strong. They can put up with trauma and leave their body and come back, and they can go through many dangerous details without any problems. This is what the bad guys are looking for, and this is really dimensional because it takes you in another dimension when you leave your body and can see what's happening to your body, but you don't really feel it. So they're very sick, they're very messed up, and they are very interested in crossing this dimension.